Okay, hi. So I wanted to do a really quick update on a video that I did like 2 years ago now, I think, about Christian tattoo regret and just how I felt about a snake tattoo that I had gotten on my 18th birthday. And in the video, I basically shared that I wasn't planning on doing much with it other than just ignoring it, and that's how I felt at that time. I believe I shared in the video that I had thought about possibly like altering it or adding things to it or like different options, but at that time I had kind of decided on not doing anything to it. And I in the video I shared that part of that was because this one didn't heal very well, so I was nervous about how my body would react to getting tattooed again, and I just didn't really want like to get tattooed again because I'm kind of crunchy and like I don't really like the idea of putting tattoo ink in my skin, and that's just for me. Like, I'm not saying that, you know, all of you guys out there, like, you shouldn't be doing that, something bad's gonna happen to you. I'm not saying that, I'm just saying for me. So I had thought about this for years, like ever since becoming a Christian. Obviously the snake tattoo bothered me, and um a lot of it I shared in the video was just because of my symbolism behind it and the reasons that I knew that I got it. So I have finally decided to do something to make an update. I just didn't want to spend the rest of my life with this tattoo that always gave me negative memories, that made me regret it. I associated it with just a bad point in life, with a bad point in my faith, horrible point in my faith, and just it just had bad associations, and I didn't want to live the rest of my life with that on my leg. And I tried to ignore it for a couple years. I tried so many different ways of dealing with it, and ultimately this is what I decided. So I just wanted to show it here on the video, especially for some people who had commented and like were following along with my experience. So, okay, here's what I decided to do. So you can see this is the tattoo I got on my 18th birthday. Like I said, if you haven't seen part one, I basically got this as a symbol of defiance against my Christian upbringing. And then I got saved and became a Christian a couple years later. So this is what I decided to do to redeem it. So I added on the other leg a dove and the words wise as serpents, innocent as doves. So the most common questions I get is why didn't you just get the snake lasered off? So I kind of talked about this in part one, but I'm not a good candidate for a laser. First of all, the cost and the pain of it would be just more than what I can afford physically and financially. Second of all, the darkness of the lines, the newness of the tattoo, and the way that it was done, and the fact that it was done really well. It hasn't faded, anything like that. It would just be, it just would not go away. Like, I could do so many sessions, all that time and pain, and it would still be pretty visible by the end of the sessions. There are only certain tattoos that are really good candidates for laser. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize. They hear laser removal and they think that like all tattoos are going to be able to be lasered off, and there are only certain tattoos, usually very small ones, and a lot of people only laser it enough to fade it to where they can then cover it up with another tattoo and it's like more faded underneath. So yeah, laser is not a foolproof thing for every tattoo. Um, and for those of you who may have followed Kat Von D's story of recently getting saved and baptized, she's actually blacking out the tattoos that give her bad memories and associations. I think she said there are other reasons too, but just because she is not a candidate for laser, of course. So that's to answer that. The other most common question I get is why didn't you just add something to it? So I did think about that for a couple years. There were lots of things that I thought about adding to it. I had suggestions like you could add a cross to it because in the Old Testament, like, there was, the serpent represented Jesus, and then the Bible says so the Son of Man had to be raised as the serpent was. And I did think about that, but just the way that it's designed, it was not designed with anything like that in mind, so I just don't think that it would look good. Also, to a lot of people who aren't familiar with the Bible, I feel like it would look even more like blasphemous to like add like a cross to it, you know what I mean? It just wouldn't give off like a good vibe about me, I don't think, to people who like don't understand the meaning. And that's just something that I personally care about. If you have tattoos that people don't typically understand, that's completely fine. Your convictions are yours, but I personally just I think about things like that for me. And obviously I don't think you should judge people based on their tattoos because you don't know the meaning to them, but I'm just saying, you know, for me it's something that I thought about. So that was why I didn't like do that. And then I thought about like adding flowers or bugs to make it a garden scene, and I've actually had a few different consultations about that. But I just thought at the end of the day, like it's still going to be, the focus will still be the snake. So it'll still be a snake tattoo with just more around it. But the biggest reason that I didn't add to it is that I shared in the other video, this one never healed great. I think for one, the placement, I wasn't aware of like how I wanted the placement to be, so we tattooed right over muscle and in a very sensitive inner thigh area that I didn't know. Also, just I believe that my artist, as much as I am not trying to badmouth him or anything, I do think that it was maybe a tiny bit overworked in certain areas. And I also think my body just didn't react great to the pressure and the way that it was tattooed in certain spots over the muscle. Again, I'm not blaming him or trying to bash his name. I'm just saying I do think that it was maybe done a little bit rough in certain areas. And because of that, there are certain areas that it just never really healed properly. And the main thing that always concerned me is sometimes like it'll obviously get raised and irritated semi often, even 7 years later, which is annoying but somewhat common for black line tattoos. But the thing that kind of concerned me is it will tingle sometimes. And so that's one of the reasons that I didn't want to get tattooed again, is because I was afraid of that happening again. But I have done extensive research. It's very rare as a side effect. So like I wouldn't worry about that if you want to get tattooed. I wouldn't worry about that necessarily because it's very rare that people say that this happens, but it's obviously it does. And so it can happen. And I have talked to a few other people and we all kind of agree that it's not from like the tattoo ink or like the tattoo itself. We think that it's from the scar tissue and like the scarring from the tattoo, because I've talked to other people with other scars that aren't tattoos, like just surgery scars that have the same thing. So I think it's a way that your body responds to old scars, not just from tattooing. So that's why I felt comfortable, once I like realized that, I felt comfortable getting another one, because as long as it's not scarring in the same way, I don't think the same thing could happen. So yeah, so those are the main reasons that I didn't add to it, just because I feel like the area is already like scarred and never healed the best. So that's why I decided to go with the other leg, just so that I wouldn't be like messing with an area that I think has already been overworked. And then I figured, as much as I didn't really want to like get a whole separate tattoo, I figured it was just the best way to redeem this one, add a new meaning, and put off a more accurate representation of myself. Like when I wear shorts, I feel like this more represents me and my beliefs and how I want to present myself, because it's the words of Jesus. So yeah, as far as why I got the text, so I'll show it again. So there's a couple different reasons why I chose the things I did. So the dove is obviously a lot smaller than the snake. That was for a reason. For one, I was just trying to minimize the tattoo ink that I put in my body and just like the tattooing in general. And then also, I don't really wear shorts very much. Like I'm only wearing this for the video. So typically, whatever I wear would be like covering to here anyway. So you wouldn't really be able to tell that it's that much smaller for like anything I wear. Now as for why I put the text on this leg, for one, it covers the space better. So like this takes up more of my leg, kind of similar to how this one takes up my whole thigh. Also, I didn't think that we had enough room, and my tattoo artist agreed, on here to make the text look good, because if it was right here, like if I had my knee bent, it could look good right here, but standing, it would be kind of in that area that gets distorted. Also, she was saying the dove would have to be really big for the text to line up on the bottom, for it to say wise as a serpent, innocent as a dove. The dove would have to be really big to kind of make the text all the way up here when my leg is bent, but then when I'm standing, it's right above the knee. Yeah, and then as far as why I got the dove small, like I said, I was trying to minimize tattooing because I am kind of nervous about the last experience that I had. It's never hurt or anything. Like, I don't mean to make it sound like it was horrible. It's just like I kind of have like borderline health anxiety already, so like having something that just always gets irritated, raised, tingly and stuff just always like bothered me, even though it's never caused me like any major problems. Like it's never caused pain or anything, except for obviously when it was healing. Yeah, and then also the shading, I didn't want her to do much shading on it, just because, again, I was just trying to like minimize the ink and stuff. And yeah. What else? I think that's about it for my decision. So basically, in general, I just decided to, I just didn't want to live with that negative reminder. I wanted to do something, and like I said, I already touched on kind of the reasons why I went with the other leg. Also, it doesn't change anything. Like, so if I'm gonna wear something to cover my thighs, for like, I would already have to cover my snake tattoo anyway, so it doesn't change the clothing that I would need to wear to cover it up. So, like, for example, with the career that I want to go into, I'm going to be covering my tattoos, but I would have been wearing the same thing anyway to cover the snake. So that's another reason why I went with the other leg, is like I feel like it doesn't change anything. Also, I want to say I did discuss these concerns with my artist before, and I made sure to go with somebody that she was so patient, very gentle, very understanding of my concerns, and we placed it and did it in such a way that did everything possible to minimize the chance of it healing badly again. So that's another reason why I went with that. So, in closing, I am not encouraging anybody with a tattoo that they regret to go out and add something to it. This was a personal decision for me, something that I only had one tattoo. Now I only have two, and I don't plan on getting any more. And that tattoo was something that always bothered me. It stood out on my body so much because it was just one giant tattoo, so it really drew attention to it. So there's so many factors why I chose to add something and make this something else, but I'm not saying that everybody needs to do this. If you're fine with like, hey, this is part of my testimony, that's beautiful. I'm not saying that you should go out and do this. And honestly, a lot of Christians have convictions against tattoos and feel like they're not biblical. And if you feel that way, not advocating that you go out and add more, obviously. It's your skin. Do what you're convicted to do. I personally have read through the Bible, and I feel like the verses in Leviticus are things that don't apply to this situation, but that's my conviction. I'm not saying that that's a fact, and I know better. Like, you need to decide for yourself if it's something that you're considering doing, because I've talked to many people who have tattoos that they regret, and a lot of them are fine with it. Like, this is my story. It's a conversation piece. I can evangelize. I feel like since I didn't cover my snake up or anything, I still have that testimony and evangelism piece, so I can still use it to testify and start up evangelistic conversations, but I also added something to reflect me better. So yeah, that is my update. I don't think I'll have any more updates on this. I think I'm good to go now. But yeah, another thing I meant to say about the shading is another reason I minimized it is, like I said, just better healing. I like how it's just like all thin lines, and the text I did thin lines for the same reason. I just wanted it to be like minimal ink, the best chance of it just healing beautifully, not getting raised, not having any problems. So, and she did an amazing job. So yeah, that's about all I have for this. So thank you for watching the update, and I just pray that this will show God's redemption. Like, you can see side by side that I have the wisdom, that is now what the snake symbolizes. But that, the Lord can bring out purity and innocence in anyone. And even in this situation, I just want it to show him and his redemption. So thanks for watching.